Welcome to the first ever In Retrospect After Analysis Q&A. Here are a compilation of questions that we have gotten over all of our videos and one on my Fimfiction blog. Thank you in advance to all of you for sending them in. This was a general question.
It started with BurnerCon 2013, really. That's where I met Vicodin in person after having read a couple of his stories, and we sort of got to know each other. After that, we ended up in the same chat rooms and found that we were getting fed up with everyone's negative response to new episodes, so we decided to make a YouTube series about it.
More or less that. Granted, we are beginning to understand some negative responses when it comes to episodes, but I'd like to imagine that we are remotely better than that. Also, just because our genres don't fit doesn't mean that we can't collaborate on something. We still know things like pacing, plot, characterization, and all of that. It might be different when it comes to other genres, like characterization might be minimized on a mystery genre, for example, or saved for later. Here are the questions for Children of the Night.
Yeah, that's definitely a way you can interpret it. It absolutely paints Luna as the good guy of the story. Then again, if you think about the original context of the song, it's about stealing children away to be sacrificed, so I guess there's a few ways you can look at it.
Yeah, this whole animation paints the Tyrant Lestia narrative that we've seen in numerous amount of fanfictions, as in Celestia controlling everything for evil means rather than what's perceived in the show as her desire for other ponies to grow and live out comfortable lives. It is very biased, we're sure of that.
I know that the show paints Celestia as this really wise and caring leader, but even with the headcanon that she's a goddess or deity of some sort, you can't really expect her to be there for every single pony. Even if she did have some way to help out homeless ponies, there's no feasible way she could get to all of them, especially with other responsibilities. It's nice to look at Equestria as a utopia, but it definitely has problems.
Yeah, and what we said about the full slipping through the cracks when it came to homeless relief, I think that certainly applies. Celestia is definitely not perfect, and I personally believe that while she has the intuition to be able to see things way farther in advance, she's only as smart as the information that's given to her. For example, she intervened during Lesson 0 because Spike sent a letter, but in an episode like a Dog and Pony show, Celestia didn't intervene because she didn't know that Rarity was ambushed by Diamond Dogs. What if Spike wasn't there and Rarity went digging on her own? Assuming that Rarity wasn't able to annoy the Diamond Dogs enough to be released, she'd still be kidnapped for a while until the other ponies began to notice, and I doubt that Celestia would have known. Celestia is smart. I believe she's really smart. She just isn't able to see into the future.
That's an interesting take on it. I think that Celestia is more likely to take the first option though.
It's also interesting because she's shown examples of both. I just think that the middle ground is probably where she'd be. She has this laissez-faire type of deal when it comes to showing ponies what they should do or letting them live out their lives, but at the same time, harmony indeed seems to be the prime motive, whether or not it's good. But when it comes to changelings or something, she protects her kingdom firsthand. We had one comment for Breezy's that we wanted to address.
You could take it as just a joke, sure, but I think what we said about it makes sense either way. Even if it was just a joke, Spike can still be viewed as someone who's stuck in an awkward place, and getting stepped on so many times can really mess you up.
Yeah, you can look at it that way since the music definitely helps bring that point home, but like Alex said, it's not like we're pulling that assumption about Spike being stepped on so much that he just snaps out of nowhere. He could be both, the joke being played for the kids and the subtext behind it being played for Spike fans. And when it comes to there being no quote lead up to it, I don't really think that that's the case, considering that Spike's characterization throughout most of the episodes that he's been in has basically consisted of him messing up somehow. So you could say that the lead up was basically the episodes preceding this one, and that they just didn't decide to play with it until now.
Even if it's a mother-daughter relationship, she's still being insane about it.
I do agree that the relationship does seem to be a little more mother-daughter than sisterly, especially with the recent episode. Applebloom taking Applejack's word for it seemed kind of sisterly to me, but more motherly than anything since Applebloom trusts Applejack when it comes to what matters. Her helicoptering would have been massively helped if there was just one instance of continuity in that episode. One line from Applejack that says something like, "You almost got turned to stone, I'm not going to make that same mistake again," and then commence the helicoptering. Also, the Chimera metaphor just felt dumb considering it came from nowhere. The whole scene in Applebloom had to pause so that they had to go through 5-ish lines to get to it. And the comparison wasn't spot on considering the Chimera metaphor more fit with the whiny sister while Applebloom was having more of a coddling problem. Maybe it's just us.
I think we've all been on both sides of the coin, to be honest. Caring too much about someone and then being cared too much about. But like I said before, AJ took it way farther than she needed to. To your second point, I can kind of concede to that. The running away from home was supposed to be more of an example, I think, but I guess it came off a bit differently.
There is something to be said for the fact that children in Equestria are probably given more leeway than children in the United States. If I had a kid and there was a chicken thing that could turn things to stone, I'd make sure that they never left Ponyville. But when it comes to the obligation, I guess I kind of agree. The choice of everything being baby-proof just seemed like an excuse so that the Chimera could be used, but as I found out with Leap of Faith, I don't think that the writer could have come up with something better and also interesting at the same time. I prefer the Chimera than something that's, boring.
Still, it was really poor on Sweetie's part to not just tell Rarity what she needed. That's the idiot ball at its finest right there. I suppose you're right about the sabotage part, but I just can't shake the feeling that there was a better way to do it, even if our suggestions didn't work for you. However, I didn't even consider the superstition thing until you brought it up. Thinking about it that way, it works a little better. Still, Sapphire was a little bit harsh on Rarity for being her favorite designer.
Yeah, I definitely didn't think of the superstitious idea, but it does sound better than what we thought it was. Just seems downright stupid to rely on the signs if you are a really popular singer. What if you walk under a ladder while on the way to a show? Do you DEFCON 5 yourself and hide until the years pass? Also, just because Sweetie Belle isn't in the episode doesn't mean that the information doesn't get around. I can definitely see Sweetie Belle wanting to talk to Rarity about her day after Sonic Rainboom, and then Rarity just spouts the whole day and Sweetie Belle absorbs it all. Then it stays with her until this episode where she has perfect anger fodder, like we said. Also, one of our alternatives did keep the sabotage hidden until it was too late. It just made it a little less contrived because Sweetie Belle would have had more of a hand into destroying what the thing was. And you can definitely correlate Rarity outshining Sweetie Belle with the whole not having any time for you thing, as we said in our previous episode. For example, if Rarity considers herself to not have enough time for Sweetie Belle can just consider Rarity to be too good for her, and thus doesn't deserve spending time on her. So again, I think that the anchor correlation does actually match. Here's some questions for the Bats episode.
This isn't the only time I've heard it talked about that way, and I kinda like it. My only point of contention would be that the show hasn't really done that before, at least not something of this length. I mean, we saw it in Hurricane Fluttershy, but that was very clearly supposed to be just Fluttershy freaking out. It's not as obvious in this case, if that's what it's supposed to be.
That is definitely understandable. The mood of both parts of the song are all there, and it's not like this sort of conveyance would be difficult for kids to grasp. It's done in Disney movies all the time with villain songs and the like. It's just, there's a difference between showing the Bats acting the way they do compared to the Friends acting the way they do. The Bats have, for lack of a better word, a flat characterization. They could be the meanies or the goodies, but with the main characters, I think it does a disservice to them when you bring them down to the Bats level.
Hey, thanks for the sub. The way the show has always described cue marks has made me think that it is a predetermined thing, but recent episodes made me think otherwise. If a magic spell can change a cue mark, like a magical mystery cure, who knows what else can change them as well.
Yeah, I honestly have no headcanon for Destiny, even though Magical Mystery Cure is my second favorite episode, so you'd think their entire changing of what Destiny meant would create something in my mind. But nope, nothing.
I'm still not totally convinced that Pinky and Philly Vanilla was Fluttershy's imagination as it was just poor writing. Obviously, I could be wrong about that, but it doesn't seem like something the writers would typically do for this show.
I think it's more along the lines of the whole Pinky has no filter for her words that Amy played with back in A Friend Indeed and was just brought on for the ride in Philly Vanilla. Only this time it was brought to Fluttershy, so everyone felt that now it was the time to bring it up. It kind of comes down to her characterization, but for the time being, I like to think that she's a few parts motor mouth, a few parts of having no filter, but at the same time being aware enough to where she could find out what to say in order to bring that smile. Make of it what you will. As far as Twilight not talking to Pinky about it, maybe it was brought up off camera, because I don't think Amy would have wasted precious time conveying that. I think there does need to be an episode about Pinky's lack of tact, but during the last season, because I don't want that taken out of her character. Well, that seems to be it for all our questions. Thank you for sending them in and for watching this video. We have some collaborations in the works that I hope you all will enjoy. Get hyped for those. Have a great day.